Good morning, gamers. Yeah, that song really put me in the mood. That's Invitation of a Crazed Moon from Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. It's actually not found on any of the official soundtracks. I think it's something that has to do with rights. It might have been written by someone else, one of those random things. But anyway, thanks for joining me. My name is Adam Blue, professional video game enjoyer for 30-something years now. Yeah, and I love talking about video games. I've been blogging about video games since the late 90s. I used to work with the press in the 2000s for a long time. And now we're here. So, yeah, let's get started. Usually I like to start with, hold on a second. Am I seeing a delay? It could just be me. Give me a second. Yeah, hold on. There is a delay, but I can fix it. Give me a second here. Maybe. All right, we'll see if that worked. Maybe it did. Work. Yeah, it did. Cool. Awesome. That happens every once in a while. Just have to like unplug and plug back in the mic. Anyway, okay. I like to start with what I got into over this past weekend. Weekends are the best time for me to play games because I get more time. I will start by saying, oh, and yeah, in the chat, Steven, Ultronomus, good morning. Good to see you guys. I will start by saying, yeah, I did play Dragon's Dogma, but I'm not going to talk a lot about it. In fact, I think I'm done with Dragon's Dogma for like the next couple weeks. I enjoyed, it was interesting. Dragon's Dogma 2, I got on release, I played like 2 weeks straight, took a week or two off, and then came back, and I really enjoyed that. I kind of stopped where I felt like, okay, I know where I am in this world, I'm going to go do some other stuff. Same thing happened again. You know, I got back into Dragon's Dogma 2, did so much crazy stuff that's in this game. And then I did one of the endings that then it opens it up to like this like more of like end game content, I guess you would say. And there's so much to it, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take another break and I'll come back to this because I know that it will take me. It's taken a long time, and I want to play other games. And then I've learned too, if I play one game just too much, too long, there's a couple things that happen. One, I tend to forget certain things because I've just gone through it so quick. The other thing too is when I have had a break and I come back, sometimes I feel like my neurons are then reprocessing what I'm doing, and then I'll realize things or understand. It's like, oh, actually, I can start going at this way. It's just like anytime you fight a boss in a game, you can't beat it, and then you come back later and you beat it on the first try. There's something to that with how our brains work. So Dragon's Dogma 2, I'll play it again, but for now, gonna take a little break. Let's actually then look at my Steam. So Phantom Fury, what is this? Well, it's a 3D Realms joint. If you know 3D Realms, they started with Duke Nukem. They made a bunch of cool FPSs in the 90s. And then they came out with Ion Fury, I believe that was called, a few years ago, which was a build engine game. You know, Duke Nukem, I believe that was the engine. Just a Duke Nukem 3D game with this new character. Pretty fun, right? And then Phantom Fury is a sequel that actually plays more like a Quake. I guess it looks more like a Quake in terms of using more 3D polygons in the work, but it still has that old school feel. And I think it's a fine game, but and I don't know if this is done on purpose, it plays and feels like a 90s game where there's a little bit of jank where I wouldn't see it nowadays, but it is a smaller developer. It's a different developer from the Ion Fury. So, and the thing is, I got this cheap. I forget how much I paid for it. I don't think I paid full price on $22.49. I think I paid a little less than this for it. And I'd say if you like boomer shooters, this is a fun one. It's probably on the lower end or mid tier, but it's all right. Okay. Minishoot adventure. This is very interesting, although I don't know if I'm gonna go back to it. This is pretty much a Link to the Past, Link's Awakening Zelda game, except you're a ship and it controls like a twin stick shooter. It's almost like to the point where it's Binding of Isaac, if you remember that, because I didn't play too much. It says I only played 16 minutes. That seems very short, but basically you have this open world map, and you fly around like a twin stick shooter ship, but you're getting your upgrades along the way. Like at one point I got my gun, so then I can shoot. And then at one point I get a boost, so I can boost over ramps, across ramps over water to get to other areas. And you'll get to area, and it's almost like a light puzzle in terms of you shoot some enemies in the room, and then you hit a switch. It's a lot like classic Zelda, but it's just cool that it's a twin stick shooter. Oh yeah, I played the demo of this. So would I get the full thing? I don't know. I think this is really cool. It might just be too much of I have done all of this before, and it's not really offering me anything new. I don't know, but I would say this is worth playing the demo. You might like it. I think it's very interesting. There was also Mecha Break. I got into the closed beta, although I was trying to launch it and on the 27th, and it was just servers under maintenance. I was like, well, I have other things to do, so yeah, I just kind of moved on. Okay, let me bring up. While I bring this up, I'll also say that I've been playing Stellar Blade, but just the demo, because I'm still debating if I want to spend money on it. And what I did was, oh man, I'm trying to multitask here, and it's hard. So with Stellar Blade, what I did was the demo, I beat the demo. What's cool is if you go to your skills in Stellar Blade, you could go to each skill and then train on it, and then just sit there over and over and over and train. I think that's the thing I like, because I've noticed my abilities in a game, my success in a game is depending on how many times I have gone through certain motions and actions to kind of memorize things. So in Stellar Blade, I spent my time perfecting like the different dodge mechanics and the parrying within the ability screen. And I thought it was pretty fun. It's interesting because it seems like the game is, and I hate to say this because I complain about this, but it seems to come off as playing Souls-like because the combat's a lot slower, more deliberate. You got to watch for your openings, but I can quickly see that with some of the upgrades the game gives you, it's almost like you can take the elements of a Souls-like and like turn it up and make it faster, but your movement allows you to do that. So I do think that's another element that's going to make this game a little more interesting than I thought. So I'll probably check it out. We'll see, because again, $70 for these games when there's a lot of games to play, I have to be certain. So, okay. Oh yeah, there's a couple other things to share before I do one. Let me go to this other. So this, I was playing Another Crab's Treasure on Xbox or on PC. It happens to be on Game Pass. Another thing I like about Xbox and Game Pass is like, again, I can play a game on console or PC on my ROG Ally, stream it on my phone. Like, that's the cool thing Xbox has going for it. So, Another Crab's Treasure. People were saying it was a Souls-like, and I'm like, oh, come on. And then I played it, and I wouldn't even say it's a Souls-like. I would say it's a clone. It's straight up a Souls clone. The only difference in this game is that you're a crab, but they have the controls the same. The pacing and the setup is the same, where even at the beginning, the game is almost like throwing you in to be like, okay, what do you do? And it actually suggests running past enemies. That's the Souls thing. But it's the whole thing where you got your bonfires, where it resets everything, that you have your 3 health flasks or Estus flasks that you use. the controls are the same controls as a Souls game. So I think there's many degrees because the Souls games are so fun that people say, oh, it's like a Souls game. And from what I've picked up, there's a couple things. You can make a Souls clone or a Souls-like. I feel like the Souls-like term is not too correct because then what is a Souls-like exactly? There's so many things that make a Souls game. This Another Crab's Treasure is a Souls clone because the controls are the same, the mechanics are the same. But the thing is, with a Dark Souls game, it also just takes elements of older games too, like Castlevania, Kingsfield. Anyway, I guess it's my own experience in playing these games that when I try to label things so I can speak on them, I have all this knowledge from before that there's a lot of younger gamers or people newer to gaming that don't, so they don't have that frame of reference. And I think I got to keep that in mind. But I would call Another Crab's Treasure not a Souls-like. It's a Souls clone. Straight up a clone. There are games that are Souls-like that have certain Souls mechanics, but are not completely that. Yeah, so what do I think of Another Crab's Treasure? Well, it's a Souls clone, so I like that, but that's the other thing too. Because this plays exactly like I would expect. Oh, that Pinocchio game, totally forgot the name of it that just came out. That was like a Bloodborne clone, straight up. And this is a clone where you're just a crab. And I think that's the main difference so far. It could be that later in the game things change up, but for me, starting the game, Liza P, Autonomous, Liza P, thank you. The thing about like this, it's like I've done this. Like, oh, I enjoy this type of game, but being a crab underwater doesn't then make me want to play it more. It makes me want to play it less. You know what I mean? And I think that's so other people's preferences. Like someone could be like, exactly what I needed. I needed an underwater crustacean-based Souls clone. And it would be interesting because let's say that was a Star Wars game, I would then probably be wanting to play it because it plays like a Souls game, but it's Star Wars. And then I'm looking right next to Jedi Survivor, which hopefully I'll get to that. But man, that Fallen Order, as high production value as it had for a Star Wars game, in terms of gameplay from a AAA studio, it was the most basic of a game you can get. I might try Jedi Survivor. I hope it does new things, does interesting new things. We'll see. Although it's funny because after Survivor came out last year, people just kind of stopped talking about it. And then in all the Game of the Year things, no one was really bringing it up. In fact, people were saying, oh, I need to get back to it. And then there was that whole issue, too, where it wasn't working on a lot of different hardware types. So, Star Wars, How You Have Fallen. Okay. Now, really quick, retro achievements. Last night was where it was just chilling on the couch with my wife. She was watching YouTube videos, and I was like, well, I'll just game on my handheld right here, which I love. My high-end, badass gaming handheld with perfect controls. All right, I went through some Marvel games. I was playing the X-Men game on Genesis very hard. Barely made it through that. Kind of learning and figuring out like what this game requires, and it's really not a lot, just memorizing enemy position and timing your attacks, because you could basically beat a level without getting hit. X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, same sort of thing, although I think it feels better than the Genesis game, although the Genesis game has a very unique look. The Mutant Apocalypse on SNES, sort of the same thing. It's like, okay, memorize enemy placement, and then you have to get the timing done right. And it kind of makes it boring. It's very interesting playing these games now, how boring they are compared to if I play a Castlevania from that time period, or a beat 'em up from that time period, like a Final Fight, Streets of Rage. Playing these are kind of, even that Wolverine Adamantium Rage, oh my god, that was horrible. But that's the other thing. Like, I could stick with these old games, play for a little while, and eventually like get the groove into it. And then lastly, actually one didn't show up here, but it might be because either I played the wrong ROM or it doesn't have an achievements.org thing, but it was Maximum Carnage, the Spider-Man Genesis game. That was pretty fun. And then I jumped into Punisher. There was a time in the 90s when I was playing Sega Genesis stuff, and it was just all these brawlers. And yeah, Punisher, pretty fun. Although it was funny when I played this, I was like, I just played this recently, and I don't remember where. Anyway, that's it for the retro games. Ultronymous saying, let's see, Jedi Survivor had a good week of recognition. I loved Mute Apocalypse. I have the soundtrack on my phone. Okay, that's cool. Maximum Carnage was dope. I still have yet to beat it, though. Yeah, I'd like to eventually beat these. That's kind of what my goal is. All these games I played when I was younger and some that I still like or haven't played, I'd like to play through completion. All right, let's jump, and I think that's it for what I played over the weekend. So let's jump into video game news. Let's see. Manor Lords passes 1 million sales after 1 day in early access. So this is like an RTS that seems to be both city building and combat. It looks fun. I just don't think I am in the headspace for an RTS that is both the city building, economy management, and the action. I would be sucked into that, and I already got sucked into Dragon's Dogma 2. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and I guess the main deal here is excellent. 1 million sales after 1 day in early access. Always love to see that good news. All right, so Escape from Tarkov Studio attempts partial U-turn on $250 PvE plans, but fans remain unhappy. Yeah, apparently Escape from Tarkov added some pay stuff that people are unhappy about. Hopefully they get that fixed. And that's what's cool. People speak up. When there's something that really is wrong, enough people will speak up if it's legit. And sometimes companies will change. All right. Tekken 8's second DLC character and upcoming free updates have been revealed. So, Lydia from Tekken 7. So, yeah, I've played every Tekken game. I haven't got this one yet. And I meant to, like, earlier this year, I remember I was looking for sales as like, okay, what am I going to play? Tekken 8 or, and then I think I waited and got Dragon's Dogma. Or there was something else at the beginning of the year. But I like playing through the story campaign of fighting games. It's kind of a fun thing to do because usually it's not too hard. The hardest part's usually like a last boss or something. It's just kind of a fun little ride. All right. Okay, so last week I talked about some Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Con news, and there might have been more details I didn't see, but over the weekend more came out about having magnetic Joy-Cons, so how they attach with magnets, which I think is great. New cartridges, new cartridge type, so it's cool. Nintendo's sticking with the cartridges, and there's a new type, and then a larger 1080p screen, which that makes sense. A lot of these portable handhelds that are playing high-end games can, especially something that's like a Switch 2, can handle 1080p. It can. And in fact, I think that's the best spec to be working at on a handheld with a high frame rate, especially if you have the option to go to 720, or 900, I should say, because sometimes when you can tweak the resolution just right, you can get some good frames out of that. It's going to be interesting to see what this whole thing is. The reason the magnetic Joy-Con thing's interesting to me is because I'm really all about the future of gaming being your own controller that you would like to use that you can just connect on the display that you would like to use. Already, we can use our controllers and Bluetooth them to multiple devices, but I think next is when you want to be able to have your display on the go. And I like the idea that they're magnetic. I don't know if there's maybe a magnetic release switch that it's going to have built in, or it's just that magnetic and then you just like grab a thing and pull it off. But that would then be cool with displays in the future if there's some sort of magnetic connectors on the ends for other devices other than controllers. But that's a neat direction to go. You know, especially considering companies could probably build little connectors that will then... Yeah, anyway, I'm thinking of adapters you could build to then make these sort of... And I have another one here. I was doing some cleaning over the weekend and I found this. This is a Razer one. It's okay. The reason I never fully got into these is because of how, like, this isn't comfortable. But this, oh my gosh, this is comfortable. And, yeah, I just can't wait for that to go crazy. Can't wait for the Switch 2. Again, Nintendo's going to continue to, even if they don't nail it, they're going to come up with ideas that then companies are going to jump on. And I remember at first, I was all down on that, like the Lenovo Legion Go with the removable controllers. I'm like, why? But if they were to add options where you can have different controller types, I think it's a great idea. All right, Game of Thrones MMORPG in development at Nexon. Yeah, lots in that sentence I don't care about, but I'm sure there are people that do. Yeah, Fallout still doing great. Dominating. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tops the Swiss charts. There you go. Mario Kart 8, always up there. Anything else? Oh, okay. RIP, veteran LucasArts lead Matthew Schell has passed away. Wow. 5,832 days of work. Wow. He's credited with over 60 games over 20 years. Jeff Keighley says, if you've played a Star Wars game over the past 2 decades, Matt Schell was a key part of bringing it to life at LucasArts. Shockingly, Matt passed away this week from a heart attack. Matt was an incredible person with a huge heart, kind, loyal, hardworking, and always funny. He probably smiled at every meeting. RIP to Matt Schell, one of the truly great people in the gaming industry. I went back into my archive to find this interview from 17 years ago with Matt at Star Wars Celebration 2007 for the TV show Gamehead. Well, R.I.P. Matt. Thanks for the fun Star Wars games. You know, that's always sad to hear. All right. Let's see. Anything else new or interesting? Again, I feel like news in general has been super slow. And I think it's just because of this transition period we're in, where the gaming industry is trying to figure out what to do. And you know what? While the game industry is trying to figure out what to do, so is Hollywood. And I might have mentioned this previously, but like over the weekend, the news was George Lucas working with Disney on a new Star Wars and Wesley Snipes coming back as Blade. So if that's true, that's amazing. And that's all they need to do. They can make, one of those with Blade, one of those old man, and it's even, you don't even have to call him old man. I'm just saying where the money is. Those Liam Neeson, those old guy action movies, right? Wesley Snipes still has it. And he could still choreograph some badass martial arts, and you don't have to make the scale so big. Just make it a badass martial arts movie, but the martial arts is bloody because it's vampires, right? And I'm really just scrolling down here to see if there's anything else. Oh, this is really interesting. I'm not going to be able to go into detail here, but search for the PlayStation number leaks. This isn't a leak that's anything bad against anyone, but it actually shows like the download numbers since like 2008 or 2007. I wonder if it, and it goes all the way to through 2023. And what it looked like is very interesting to see, like things like Horizon Zero Dawn or Uncharted 4 not actually sell much. But it's like, again, these prestige titles Sony has, they market them with this grandeur about them to make it seem like it's so amazing. And it's interesting to see that on the other end, people don't really care. But that's one thing I think Sony does right is, even though I think Horizon misses its mark on so many levels, it is cool that Sony is sticking with the IP and doing things with it. It's just weird that they didn't do it with Days Gone, and Days Gone happened to be more successful than some of the other games, but I never played Days Gone. Yeah, so let's see. I think that's about it. Was there something I looked up? I was looking to see if there's any other video game news, but there's really nothing crazy or nothing that I think is super interesting. I think a lot of the news, and this is what happened last week, a lot of the video game podcasts I listened to, I would just shut off because since there's little news, it ended up being like, oh, companies are doing layoffs. Let's talk bad about these companies. Or, oh, Stellar Blade censorship. Look at these people trying to do campaigns to uncensor. What? It's like, I'm not interested in that level. So that's kind of a disappointment. And that could be what really sparked me to then get into like, okay, let's talk about games. Sure, there might be not a lot of game news, but I don't want game podcasts and game news to really just be about the drama anymore. So, so I hope in this past 25 minutes I offered something. Let's go to chat real quick, actually, because Autonomous is killing it in there. Wesley Snipes coming back as Blade would be neat so long as they fix the story. So that's another main thing. As easy and as cheap as it could be to film an awesome Blade movie, they really need to have a cool story. Because I would even say Blade 1 story was good enough since we're being introduced to the character, but Blade 2 and 3 stories were like they had a good idea. 2 was a very schlocky story. 3 had a good idea because bringing back Dracula, but then yeah, everything else about that, except for all the stuff with Wesley Snipes was awesome. Anyway, so I think that's about it. Thanks everyone that tuned in, and let me get my gaming thoughts off my chest. I'll continue to be doing this, so I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good rest of the day.